What's good, Freedom Marchers? You guys aren't focused anymore, you Freedom Marchers. How's my fellow Freedom Marchers doing? On my way home from work. It is raining right now in Southern California. And I'm just in awe of how people in California drive when it rains. It's like they don't know how to drive anymore. It's like it's their first time driving. But this is not going to be a long live. I'm going to talk about these dads on duty real quick. There's a school out in Louisiana, a high school, where there was like 26 fights and so many students arrested for fighting. And so these group of dads took it upon themselves to show up to the school. Show up to the school. They did it in shifts, and they'd show up and they'd clown around with the kids. They'd make fun of them. They tell them to get to class, and basically, just due to their presence, I think in about 3 weeks, there were 0 fights, just because these dads would show up and make their presence known at this school. And this just points to how necessary strong male leadership is, right? This strong male leadership is what's lacking in our communities. It's what's lacking in government. And in real life, we don't need government, right? So any type of leadership in government is going to be corrupted, and is going to be overreach. Any form of government interference in your life is government overreach, period. The government is not responsible for your safety. They're not responsible for your kids' safety. So it's good to see that these fathers took it upon themselves to go out there and, make sure that the children were safe, that the children had a safe environment to go to learn, to interact with other students without having to worry about, being bullied and all this other shit. And, to ensure that they actually went to class and got, the education, I guess, that the public school system could afford them, right? And we know, y'all know how I feel about the public school system. But something like this would make me feel a little bit more comfortable sending my children to school. Of course, these fathers would have to be vetted. You know what I'm saying? I would have to vet them. Like, I don't care what your stated intent was. You show up to school, interact with my children, you got to be on the up and up. But, as far as I'm concerned, these guys are doing a great job, and they didn't need the government to do it. As a matter of fact, they probably stepped in because they understood that the government has no well intentions for their children, but to have them go to jail. The government probably wants these kids to fight, act a fool, act out so they can get arrested, so they can become part of a system that enriches the prison industrial complex. Because that's what it is. These kids fight at school, they get arrested, boom, they become part of the system, and their life can be ruined. This shit goes on the record. You know what I'm saying? I think I saw Xander step up in the building. Hey, y'all, when y'all get up in here, do me a favor, hit the like button. I appreciate that. But, the bottom line is these schools are institutions. These schools prepare your children for institutionalization in adulthood, whether it's in prison or whether it's in the slave system they call the job market. They teach your children how to conform and comply. Fucking goddamn. Your children are not being taught financial literacy. They're not being taught how to become business owners. They're being taught how to enrich the banker system. They're being taught to enrich the big corporations instead of enriching themselves. But with all that being said, these fathers, they're doing a great job. They're ensuring that the violence doesn't, continue, and it hasn't. It hasn't since they've been there, since they've shown their presence. And you'd think that'd be a great model on how to approach the school system everywhere. That should be a given. I mean, and that's what's so important. That's why I homeschool my children, because I understand that myself and my wife, we are heavily involved in their education. And when they go to their little, because they'll take some classes, they'll have to go here and there, maybe a couple hours, a few hours a week for certain classes. And my wife is there the whole time. She knows what they're doing. She knows exactly what's going on. And it's very important that parents get more involved in their children's education, not to just send their children off to this institution to be taught. And I'm glad to see that these fathers are doing it. And like I said, most importantly, they did not ask for government help. They didn't say, "Oh, government, can you please come help me keep my children safe at school?" No, they didn't do that. They said, "I'm gonna take my black ass up there and make sure that the violence stops." And let me tell y'all something, that shit works. That shit works. I remember, I know, I remember, of course I remember. I actually spoke on this a few times when I went to, when I got out the Army. I joined this little HOTEP crew, back in 2004, it was 2004, toward the end of 2004. And we did these community call to actions, where we basically provide customer service, not civil service, but with community service, right? Not because we got tickets and we had to perform so many hours, but because we were concerned about the community. We were concerned about the violence. We were concerned about police violence and all that shit. I mean, we hit the ground. We were pounding pavement, and one thing that we did, there were black on brown or brown on black riots at certain high schools on the east side in LA. Not East LA, but the east side, like where Washington is and Washington High School and all that other shit. Very dangerous areas where I guess black and brown kids were getting into it, and they were beefing, and they started fighting, and there were riots going on. And they asked some of us to go to the school every day for like maybe a week or two, just to be there, just to be present, to ensure nothing popped off. And I'm telling you, just by us being there, standing around, and just making sure that we were paying attention to what was going on, the riots, they didn't continue, because we were there. We were there to make sure that it didn't happen. And if it did happen, we would intervene, and we would make sure that we put an end to it. So that type of shit works. Community action, community involvement, all that can be done without government. It's not something we were obligated to do. It's not something that we did because we were getting paid to do it. No, we didn't get paid to do this shit. We volunteered. And that's a perfect example, and the dad's on duty. That's a perfect example of volunteerism, man. You volunteer your time. You willingly participate in an activity that would improve your community. And like I said, they did that without government, without, you know what I'm saying? And look, let me tell you something. No one would care. No one would care if the news didn't pick it up. If somehow the news didn't pick it up, I can guarantee you that their actions are going to be co-opted by the government at some point, right? Because the government can't not get involved in some shit like that. They have to put their nose in. They have to do this and try to regulate shit and all this other shit. They have to put their stamp on it. You know what I mean? They have to act like they care and they're doing something. At the end of the day, let's not forget, These dads, they did it. They started the program. They're doing it without government help, without government assistance, without none of that shit. They're not asking for handouts. You know what I'm saying? You know, and this also goes a long way to disprove this narrative that no one cares about black on black crime, right? It puts an end to that narrative that no one cares about black on black crime. No one's doing anything about it. Where's BLM? Blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? We don't need BLM to show that we care about our community, that we care about black on black violence. And this is a perfect example of that. They're not running around talking about Black Lives Matter. They're not making it a racial issue. But these are black fathers going up to a black school to make sure that there is no violence. So put that narrative to bed. Let's put that to bed. This whole bullshit idea that no one cares about black on black crime. That all they care about is white police on black crime. And you know, that bullshit right there, man, it don't hold water.
Ahead on the route. Oh. Slow traffic.
That shit don't hold water, man. Real shit. Because at the end of the day, shit like this doesn't get highlighted like it should. Right? Thankfully, this did get highlighted. You know, thankfully, somebody saw the gem of this and said, let's make this be known. Let's put this out there. Let's make sure everybody knows that this is possible, it's being done, and all that shit.
Ahead on the route. Slow traffic.
So yeah, that's a good thing. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to these fathers, and shout out to anybody that wants to get involved in their children's lives to that extent. And you know, at the end of the day, man, if there's something going on, if you got issues with your children's school, there was one that showed up to a school board meeting and went off on the school board because his child, his daughter, had been sexually assaulted by a boy acting like he was a girl because of this transformer bullshit in the bathrooms. So because he claimed he was a girl, he was able to go into the bathroom and victimize a female student. You know, that type of shit, it happens more often than you think. Something that was highlighted because he made noise at the school board meeting. But trust and believe that happens more often than that. That's not an isolated incident. And it doesn't even have to be a transgender student. It could be just a student, it could be a teacher. I don't know if I told you guys about this. What really, back before my daughter was of school age, what really turned me off of school for my children, sending them to school, is this incident I heard about. This teacher, for 20 years, over 20 years, a tenured teacher, for 20 years, had been sexually assaulting whole classrooms of students. Whole classrooms. For 20 years. There were complaints before, but these motherfuckers swept it under the rug. They hid it. They covered it up. So, for 20 years, these kids weren't getting justice. But finally, the only reason they had to do something was because they found child pornography. They found child pornography at his house or in his computer or something like that. And it was not just random children. It was the children that were in his high school, that were in his school. Children that were in his school, in his classroom, that he had been doing these nasty things to for 20 years. Not to one particular group of students. You know, children grow up and they move on. But, and now I'm about to get graphic a little bit, but it's important to understand what these cats are doing and how sick and twisted these people are. All right. What happened? One incident, he gave the kids cookies. Okay. And they were type of frosting you would think it was made from his disgusting jism. All right. He had made frosting with his jism and put it on the kids' cookies that he gave to the kids, and had these kids eating his junk, eating his nasty ass excrement.
0.7 of a mile ahead on the route.
That's just one
Slow
example
traffic.
of what he did to these kids.
Proceed about 3 miles.
When I heard about that, I was like, oh yeah,
I-110 north.
that cinches it.
0.6 of a mile.
That
ahead
enforces
on the
my
route. Slow
decision to get my children, to keep my children from going to school, to homeschool my children. And so that's what I say, man. We know the public school system is garbage, and the private school system too is garbage. If you're not a participant in your children's art education. If you send your kids to private school and you're actually involved in their education, you're like a teacher or you're there, and that's what I'll say. I don't have a problem with like school pods, basically consisting of homeschooling parents that come together and teach children together, and they all have different tasks. That's as much a school as I would have my kids go to, because I know my wife would be heavily involved. She would be right there making sure her kids are good to go with trusted parents and trusted adults and all that other shit. So that's where we at with it. So if you having a problem with your kids in school, man, forget all that fussing and huffing and puffing and going up to the school board to blow their house down, man. Get your kids out of school. Figure it out. I know it's hard. You need 2 incomes and all that other shit, but you can make it work. There's, your wife or you can do remote jobs. Get a remote job where you're working from home. There are a lot more of those nowadays.
In 2 miles, the exit on the right.
I will say, this pandemic had presented an opportunity for a lot of parents to get an idea of what homeschooling is like. And a lot of these parents actually like homeschooling their kids. They came away like, oh, okay, this is not so bad. And it really isn't, man. It's really not. Like, you don't have to sit up there for 7-8 hours a day going lesson over lesson over lesson over lesson. You don't need to do that when you homeschool. You can go to the park. You can go anywhere. You can go to a museum. You can go camping during the middle of the week when there's barely any, it's not crowded, and you got some access. Like, there are so many things you can do while homeschooling, and you don't need to do hours and hours of homework. Your children don't have to be stressed out and all the other shit over homework. They don't have to do that Common Core bullshit, which, now look, I did a presentation on Common Core, how as Common Core curriculum grew, so did the stress levels in children, and so did childhood depression and childhood suicide. Now, I'm not saying there's causation. I'm just saying there's correlation with the proliferation or the expansion of Common Core curriculum and child depression and child suicide. Because they just overcomplicate the bullshit, or overcomplicate it. You know what I'm saying? Common Core is trash. And that's what they're forcing down these kids' throats. So we don't have to do that as a homeschool parent. As homeschool kids, my children have to know that Common Core bullshit. They can learn the timetable. They can look at it. You know what I'm saying? They can do math in their head with no problem. Just because they know automatically what the answer is. They know automatically 2 + 2 is 4. Because you got 2 things over here, 2 things over there, 2 of the same thing over here, 2 of the same thing over there. You add it together, you have 4 of the same thing. That's it. All this other shit, the squares and the grid, like, get the fuck out of here with that. All right? You're stressing these damn kids that they don't understand it. These kids do not understand. They can't grasp Common Core, and neither can the parents. And that's why people are getting stressed out. That's why these kids are fucking depressed at 11 years old and commit suicide. You know what I'm saying? Because there's so much pressure and so much, this is the homework and the lack of recess. They don't get all the fresh air they need. They got these fucking partitions wearing face flags now. It's just they've added
at the end of the road.
They've added elements to the stress level of these children, man. And we don't need that. And I don't need that. I don't want that for my children. That's why I homeschool my kids. But nonetheless, shout out to Dads on Duty. Ohead Du says, I think classes should have 2 teachers. Yeah. I don't know what it would help. Maybe. I just think that, sending your kids to the public institution is that needs to stop, right? Just the solution to me is to get your kids out of school, to make sure that they're getting the proper education and a stress-free education. Their education should not be stressful. Children should not be going through stress like that. Period. You know what I'm saying? Not from school. Not from trying to learn 2 + 2. Like 2 + 2 does not need to be complicated. It is not. They don't, and they also shouldn't have to worry about going into a bathroom and being assaulted. You know what I'm saying? Or being groped on by their teachers, or you know what I'm saying? They shouldn't have to worry about teachers giving them contaminated cookies. Like this is the type of bullshit.
About 2 miles.
It's not just about school class size and the number of teachers per student. That's the least of the problem. You know what I'm saying? We know there's way too many students in the classroom per teacher. We know that. But that's such a trivial, that ain't even half the problem. The problem is the curriculum. The problem is the testing. You know, they teach you to test. That's not what education is supposed to be about. That's not what learning is supposed to be about. You're supposed to learn how to go about life as an adult. And there are certain things that you have to understand as an adult. It's not about testing. Some kids don't test well. Right? It's not even about getting a perfect grade on your homework. Again, because some kids, they don't do homework. They don't like doing homework. It bores them, and it fucking stresses, and it just messes with their minds. But they can take a test on a subject, barely have to study, and pass it with an A fucking plus. You have to know what that child's strengths and weaknesses are. And it's impossible to know that at a school when you have 35 to 40 kids per classroom for one teacher. You know what I mean? So I see where that is. And it's just too many problems to me with the public school system. You know what I mean? Even the private school system, because they have to go by a certain protocol and curriculum, and they have to do certain things. It's really just the state. If the state's involved at any fraction in your children's education, any fraction, if they're involved in any freaking percentage of your children's education, it just, man, it's like, get the fuck out of here with that. Even now with the homeschooling program my children are in,
about 2 miles to
they used to have to meet with the educational facilitator once a month, and she was hella cool. She just wanted her learning samples from the kids. You know what I'm saying? You know, and y'all, y'all didn't even have to give her a schedule. We didn't have to give her a schedule, none of that shit. But now, because of COVID, for whatever reason, they're trying to crack down on the charter schools. They're trying to crack down on the charter school homeschooling program, which is my kids are part of that, just because. And the reason they're involved is to keep the state out of my motherfucking business, right? So you're enroll them in something like that, or you have to do all this shit yourself, and they still want to know the schedule, and they want attendance and all this other shit. But when you go through the charter school program, the educational facilitator takes care of all that, and you get funding for material and things like computers and and language learning programs and little different classes they can take. You know, like if they want to take a mountain climbing class or a rock climbing class, they can do that. If they want to take, you know, a kung fu class or a boxing class or a swim class, they can do that through these funds. And hell yeah, I take these funds because guess what? They take money out of my check every week to go toward the public school system. So goddamn right, I'm gonna get that money back. Shit. And you know, just as a side, it kills me when these politicians, like Joe Manchin, right? He had a problem with the child tax credit monthly payment for people who don't work or something like that. Or if you make over $60,000, if you make over $60,000 and all this other shit, you shouldn't get it. It's a handout. And I'm like, where are they getting this handout shit from? Because the money the government gets, they get from us. They get that money from us. So this handout bullshit, like when you go on unemployment or you go on disability or something like that, or you pay family leave, it's not a fucking handout. We pay into that shit. That's why I don't understand where this handout shit is coming from. Child tax credit. If you pay taxes, that's the way you get it. And you're not getting it unless you pay taxes. And if you pay taxes, what the fuck are you doing? You're working, motherfucker. So yeah. What is this handout shit? I'm getting tired of these politicians saying handout. Oh, the people don't need handouts. No, you motherfuckers are getting a handout because you ain't doing shit but robbing the people blind and selling us down the river, selling us out to the bankers, selling us out to the big corporations. You motherfuckers are getting a handout, not us. You're taking our money. You work for us. How dare you sit up here and say it's a fucking handout? Fuck you. Fucking handout. Fuck out of here. Who you taking the money from? That's our fucking money. Oh, if you extend unemployment, it's a handout. Motherfucker, that's our motherfucking money. We pay into unemployment. Every hour we work, we pay into unemployment for as long as we are employed. That means I have been paying into unemployment since I was 17 years old. Paying into Social Security, paying into Medicare, Medi-Cal, and all this other shit that they call handouts. The fuck out of here.
Slow traffic.
Now, welfare, that's a different thing. You know, if you're on welfare, you never worked a day in your life. Okay, so that's a handout. All right, and it's not right for me to have to pay for a motherfucker to be on welfare.
Left turn.
I agree with that. But when you talk about child tax credit, unemployment, and all this other shit, that's you pay into that. Pay family leave, you pay into that. It's paid for by you. Point blank and period. Anyway, I digress. So, shout out to these dads on duty. And you know, that's a beautiful thing, man. I love I love seeing fathers get involved. I love seeing strong men get involved in the communities and you know, help the community get to where they need to go. Stop the violence. These little things help, man. And a lot of these young kids, man, that's all they need. They just need a strong male figure to let their presence be known and to say, hey, we're not here to look down on you. We're not here to look at you as a number. You're not, you know what I'm saying? Like the teachers do. We're here because we care about you, we love you, and we don't want you guys hurt each other. That goes a long way with these children. I'm telling y'all, man. Children
about 9/10
are very impressionable
to your destination.
And they're young and they have this level of naivete, but they're also pretty wise, man. They're also pretty wise. Yeah, someone to talk to, someone to clown around with, you know what I'm saying? Joke around and just be a jovial spirit for these young kids. But at the same time, you let them know, look, don't cut up. Don't cut up around here. You don't want to get locked up. You don't want to get taken by the police. And I think that's why they really wanted to be there. I think it was more so the arrests of these kids than the violence itself. You know what I'm saying? Of course, we don't want kids fighting. Of course, we don't want that. They don't want that. But we know how the justice system can be. We know how overblown they can be, and we know that they can inflate charges and add extras and shit to make you part of the system, to basically make you a slave to the prison industrial complex. There's a lot of money in big business or in private prisons. Louisiana has like one of the goddamn worst private prison systems in like Louisiana, Mississippi, those states right there. You don't want to get caught up in that, man. You don't want. They still do goddamn chain gangs around that bitch. So listen, I think a lot of it had to do with let's stop the violence, black on black violence, but it also had to do with we don't want the reason for these pigs to take our children and kidnap them and take them and lock them away and make them a ward of the state, and have the parents get in trouble, because then it trickles down to the parents and the parents get involved. It's just I'm so glad that they're doing this, man. And it's a beautiful thing that there has not been any, since they started, zero fights.
You have arrived.
So there's something to be said about that.
Finished.
I just got to the house. See what y'all talking about real quick up in here. Oh, hey, Deuce. Yeah, she was a return. Yeah, I've used StreamYard before. Male students don't respond well to homework. Female students do. Male students would rather learn hands-on. Exactly. You can't do everything for everybody. That's the problem with the society, is that they want this one-size-fits-all solution for every goddamn problem, but that doesn't work. And that's why individuality, personal accountability, personal responsibility, and self-accountability, self-efficiency is the most important, because you know what's best for you and your children. You know what's best for you and your children. You know how you raise your children from wee little tykes. You know how they respond to certain things. You know what they respond to. All my children react differently to certain things. I can't do the same thing with every child. I have 6 kids. I cannot treat them all the same. It can't happen. I can't do the same thing with this one. No, they're all different. They all respond differently to different stressors and different interactions and, different stimuli. It's crazy how different all my children are from each other. Yeah, that's all it took, man. Presence of a strong male figure. Imagine that. All right, imagine that. So anyway, I just thought I'd come out here and shout him out real quick and all that good shit. Joseph Francis Burton says, I am shocked how many of our dear leaders are coming out with the opinion that parents should have no involvement. Yeah, man, fuck them. Anybody that say that, they're your enemy. Anybody that says that parents should stay out of their children's education, what? Man, they're your enemy. They're full of shit. They're the problem. All right. Anybody that says that is the problem. Anybody that tell you, oh, mind your business, don't get involved with your children's education, they want your children to fail. They don't want you to be, because they're hiding something. They have something to hide if they don't want you to know. You should be heavily involved in your children's education. Yeah, indoctrination, exactly. They don't want to know how badly your children are being indoctrinated. And they don't want you to do something about it. They want you to continue to go to work, Oh yeah, you both go to work. Your wife don't need to stay home. You need to go to work and make a paycheck and bring it home. That's what they want. I say fuck that. You need to be. It's all your business. As a matter of fact, your children's education ain't their business. And the sooner we realize that, the better off we'll be, and less depending on government we'll be. So anyway, much love, like, share, subscribe, peace out, and man, y'all let me know what y'all think in the comment section. Shout out to these dads on duty out in Louisiana. Peace out, and you guys, let's keep marching toward for freedom, please.